with Coach Holder, and I just wanted to hear more about your friendship back in college and how that's developed to being on the same coaching staff together.
Oh, I don't know if I want to put our friendship out.
Okay.
Our friendship back in college out there, especially with George over there. No, I'm just joking. Actually, Coach Holder came in out of the exact same year in '85. We came to the University of Miami together, so we're definitely part of the class that came in together. Our friendship is phenomenal. It's over a 30-year friendship, been close with each other. This is the first time we've coached together. I've always known where he's coached. He's always known where I coach. It was kind of a situation when I got this job, or when I was thinking about interviewing for this job, he's the first person I called about being an offensive line coach. And basically what he said was, don't worry about it wherever I am. Just get the job and I'm there. And we call each other Kane, short for hurricane. So we call each other Kane. So just get the job, Kane, and I'm there. So it's one of those situations where it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Do you want to go ahead, Chris, or do you want me to keep going?
Anna, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask about Hicks and Robinson, the two new additions to your wide receiver group. What do you kind of want them to bring into your program while they're at RMU?
Well, the experience probably more than anything else, and also a little bit more speed. I mean, right now, the guy that's done a great job for us is DeAndre Hicks. Has played outstanding. DeAndre's done a lot of good things. The great thing about DeAndre, he wants to be a coach one day. So he really studies the game of football. He's really into it. Him and George, I'm sure, do a lot of stuff. He probably asked George a ton of questions. So he's bringing that aspect of the game, a great student of the game. And with Davon, he's still kind of feeling his way a little bit. He's still trying to figure out his niche here, his niche there. We've moved him a lot of different places. When we lost Marcus early in the year, our tight end, we've been moving Davon from a big tight end to a small tight end to a big receiver. So we moved him around a lot. So we're still trying to find his niche. We're trying to use his talent in the best way possible right now. So he's still kind of feeling his way where DeAndre's kind of found his way to slide, and George and him have connected on a few things. So both of them are bringing, just say speed and just some experience, probably more than anything else. Because we got a young receiving core other than Jerry Hanks. And Jerry's done a great job for us. But other than that, we got a young receiving core. So we're trying to hope those guys come in and teach a little bit.
George, what's it like watching film with Hicks and just getting to know him?
Yeah, I think Coach Clark really squared it off when he was saying that DeAndre asked me all the questions. I mean, before practice, I'll walk around and sometimes he'll come up to me and ask, 5 questions about 5 different plays that we're running today. And so, DeAndre just loves the game of football and he wants to learn. And it makes it a lot of fun for me because it's someone who, who's not just there to, run his route or catch the ball. He's someone who cares about why he's doing it and how he's doing it.
Would you say him coming to the program sparked anything for you and your interest with football and learning new things while watching film with him?
I've always kind of had that same feeling towards football where I want to know what everyone's doing. That way I can figure out how the whole play or the whole, concept itself works out. But I think when DeAndre came and he started asking questions, it made me realize that there are a lot of other people who may be interested in that.
Cool. And then, Coach, I wanted to ask about defensively, Jack Chambers. How would you like to defensively contain the quarterback of CSU?
Put him on the sideline? No, the biggest thing with Jack is he's an outstanding player. The thing you don't want to do, you want to make sure we can contain him as best we can. I mean, that's the whole situation. Just try to give him some different looks on defense of coverages, some man coverages, some zone coverage. Just try to give him some different looks and kind of confuse him a little bit because he's an outstanding football player. And then he can hurt you with his legs. So when he takes off running, you just got to make sure you corral him, make sure you're vicing him. What I mean by vicing, bring a player from here, and make sure he's in between guys as opposed to trying to have one-on-one tackle. So we're trying to vice the tackle as much as you can with him because he's an outstanding football player. He's done a lot of great things. I mean, not just this year, but he also did a lot of great things last year. So that's what you want to do with him. It's one of those situations where he's an outstanding football player, and we're going to do our best to confuse him as far as coverages and things like that.
And now I know you guys were supposed to play Charleston Southern a few weeks ago. You've obviously had more time to prepare for this game. Do you think, in what ways has that maybe helped you heading into this weekend?
Well, to be totally honest with you, we kind of had our hands full with that option last week, so we really haven't prepared too much for him. But the good thing about it, we did prepare for a running quarterback. So he is a quarterback that can run, so we prepared for that. We just got a guy that added the aspect of being able to pass to his repertoire, and so he's done a great job at that. So we're getting ready for them this week because we kind of got to get the option out of our system and realize we're getting ready to play a team who does not run the option. So it's a little different than what we've been looking at. We studied for him, though, the week we were supposed to play him, but then that got switched up. So, but we're excited about the game.
Coach, with that said, the option was, obviously frustrating to go up against. I'm wondering, when you talk to your defense about playing that option, how many of the guys actually had seen it before? Because, even in high school football here in Western Pennsylvania, I can think of one team that actually runs it. Everybody else is in the spread these days.
Well, we got a glimpse of it last year against Kentucky State, if you can remember, Chris. Kentucky State, and unfortunately, they beat us also. But it's a situation where the thing about the option is exactly what I said last week. You have to be disciplined. You have to know who you're taking. You have to take that guy on that point in time. And if you watch our first half, we weren't doing that. And in the first half, we just weren't doing what we're supposed to do when it came to the option. We were just making the wrong selection. In the second half, we started understanding that with the option, if you get 5 yards on the first, you can't panic, because that's what they're expecting to get. They're expecting to get 5 yards on first down. You just next down, you got to make sure you get a tackle for a loss. And in the second half, we're able to do that. We only gave 7 points in the second half, but we waited too long to get it going. And that's what hurt us a little bit. And the option is just one of those things because, like you said, you don't see it a whole lot. Not a whole lot of teams are playing it. And then when you have a team that runs it to that kind of perfection on a regular basis, it's tough to beat them. You just got to put yourself in a position to get it going. So next time when we see them, hopefully you come next year, the discipline will be there. We'll start early and be able to get, instead of getting behind the sticks and getting behind things.
I know it was a tough game on both sides of the football for you, but obviously I want to keep it on the bright spot. There was a nice 71-yard drive in the second half that unfortunately ended on the doorstep. And, if you can talk about that drive, the fact that Elijah Jackson helped propel that drive, and maybe George can talk about the last play that ended the drive.
Well, the great thing about it is exactly what you said. It gave us a little more confidence in the second half. And like the one thing we talked to our guys about was time of possession. When you're dealing with an option team, they eat up a lot of clock. And so doing that drive, ironically enough, Chris, doing that drive, I looked up at the clock to see time of possession because I thought they had a huge time of possession over us. And I'm like, wow, time of possession is real close. And that drive had a lot to do with it. Like you said, it ended in a fumble, unfortunately.
Yep. We were actually doing the same thing on the radio call. Brian was keeping an eye on the clock and saying, look, the time of possession is almost equal now.
Yeah, and we did a great job of getting it there. We just stumbled at the end. And I'm not making excuses. I'm not one to make excuses, Chris. But when you have a month off and you play against the number 7 team in the nation, and they're running an unorthodox offense that you're not used to facing, and you're struggling a little bit, things like that happen. But offensively, I think George calmed down in the second half, and he'll be able to tell you a little bit more. He calmed down in the second half. He started seeing things a little bit clearer in the second half. And I think Elijah started seeing holes and started being patient with blocks, and that's what really helped us. But George, you could expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's basically right. I thought that drive in particular was definitely, one of the best drives we had. And I think if we play like that all game, it would have been totally different. But unfortunately, I couldn't get started first half. We couldn't get the run game started the first half, and all those different factors, really put us behind. And then second half, we started to get something going on offense, but it was just too little, too late.
So how do you get yourself started a little bit faster on Saturday?
Usually it's about calming down, especially when you're on the road. If you start off your first couple plays and without really calming down and taking a minute to look around and slow down in the huddle and on the field and everywhere, then you can get a little bit overwhelmed. And I think I might have done that a little bit, and so it took me a little bit too long to get in rhythm.
George, talk about the road trip. This is the first road trip you've had in a long, long time. And how did you get acclimated to that, you and your teammates?
We usually get down there with like adequate time to get rest and make sure that we're fully functional and able to compete at our highest level. The only differences ever really are where you are, but once you get on that field, it feels like you're right at home, so it doesn't matter either way.
Coach, back to Anna's earlier question and her comments about quarterback Jack Chambers. What else about Charleston Southern concerns you most other than their quarterback?
Well, they're a good football team. They're a well-coached football team. The wide receiver, number 4, does an outstanding job. He's a very good player, very quick. He's like their DeAndre Hicks to us. He's an outstanding player, does a lot of good things, does well. The defensive line really concerns me. They have their defensive line. They have all conference guys up front, very good players, and right now we're hurting a little bit at our offensive line. So the great thing about it is George and Coach LeVar get together and they understand that we have to use our personnel in a certain way when we're facing against a defensive line like that. So the two things that scare me are the two things that are probably the most important thing. Their defensive line and their quarterback are probably the two biggest factors that we're going to have to face. And we got to contain number 4. Number 4 is an outstanding player, but also number 1, he's returning. They have about 7 returning starters on offense and about 6 on defense. And so you're always worried about those things. They got a solid safety, number 5, who's a pretty smart guy, does some good stuff. He may not be the fastest guy, but he puts himself in the right position to make plays.
George, I know that was the Kennesaw State game was the first Big South game, and Charleston Southern is going to be the second one. If you will, can you talk to the higher level of football that the Big South presents to you as the quarterback of the Colonials?
Yeah, for sure. When we were in the NEC, obviously we played against multiple good defenses and a few good defensive players who, could make it to the next level. And I think coming to the Big South, those defenses just got, bigger and better and faster. And those players, same thing, bigger, better, faster. Now you might be playing against 2 or 3 future NFL guys. But yeah, Charleston Southern, like Coach said, great defensive line, very fast, very big, and we're going to have to stop them. And that'll be a challenge for the offensive line, but I think we can do it. I think we can handle them.
Coach Clark, it's another long trip to the South. Do you plan on traveling the same way you did this past week?
No, we're gonna a 2-day bus trip. We're gonna leave tomorrow as opposed to leaving on Friday. We're gonna stop in Blacksburg, Virginia for a night, hang out there, then we're gonna wake up the next morning and go on down to Charleston Southern. The good thing about it, Coach Audrey has given us the opportunity to go on the field, so we'll be able to walk through. We won't go in the locker room. We'll be able to walk through and actually see the field and see what it looks like, and just kind of walk around on the turf a little bit and see how things go. And the coaches will be able to talk to the players out there. So that's good. That's a little change ups that we normally do, but we haven't been able to do because of COVID. So we're excited about that. But I think either way, it's going to be a good trip. I think our guys are excited about this. I mean, we're ready to get that bad taste out of our mouth and not winning or losing, but just playing bad. We just didn't feel like we put a great product on the field last week. We didn't feel like we played our best. I think a lot of guys, coaches included, have a bad taste in their mouth. I think we're just ready to go and just play hard and give it everything we have and do our best and put the best product we can on the field. Because just like George said, we're coming into a new conference. So we're trying to see where we feel ourselves. And you're talking about, I think it's been Monmouth or Kennesaw who's won the conference over the past few years and kind of everybody else. So we're going against Charleston Southern, who hasn't won the conference, but they're also a great football team involved in the conference. So now we got to figure out where we fit in this conference. We knew we fit in the NEC. We knew at some point we'd be in the top 2, top 3, but right now we're just kind of feeling our way, trying to figure out who's this. But so this would be a great trip for us to get that bad taste out of our mouths, Chris.
I just have one final question. Health of the football team, including the offensive line. How's everybody feeling?
It's there. I mean, that's probably the best thing I can say. It's been a struggle. Chris, everything we're doing, we're fighting through. The offensive line are doing a great job. They're fighting through. And when you're going against different teams with different defensive lines, like George said, and you're facing stout defensive lines every week, those guys are, getting beat up pretty doggone good. And we got some other guys, Jay White's still not back. We're trying to do as best we can back there with our defensive backs and things like that. Luckily, we haven't lost a whole lot of guys. At the spot that we're really hurting at right now is the offensive line. Our guys are fighting through. They're fighting tough. They're doing what they need to do. But we're just hanging in there. that's what it boils to right now. It's one of those situations where we're hanging on and guys are fighting. We're going to continue to fight, Chris.
Okay.
Coach, I have a few questions about the Big
Yes,
South
ma'am.
and making that move to this conference. Do you know any coaches or players here in this conference?
It's crazy enough that the coaches I know is the defensive back coach for Charleston Southern. I actually coached him at Florida International University, Greg Moss. And Greg and I go way back. We still keep in touch with each other. He was our cornerback when I coached at FIU when I was the defense coordinator years ago. And Greg's an outstanding guy. I just met the head coach there, but I know of him. He played at a school I don't like. I won't mention. But so that's how I know him. And obviously, the coach at Campbell University, I just remember Coach Mentor from when he played in the NFL. I know of his name and I know him. And I take that back also. The defense coordinator for Kennesaw State also, I coached also. When I was at USF as a defensive line coach, he was a defensive back that played for us. And so Danny Rappel. So those are two guys I know real well that have been doing good. I'm trying to think of anybody else in the conference that I know. Those are the two I know real well. Greg Moss and Danny Rappel, the two guys I really know.
Okay, cool. And then I guess for you too, George, do you know any coaches or players in the conference?
I don't think I do actually, but I guess it's just being a farther conference away from where I grew up, so I don't really know any players that got recruited.
Right. And then I wanted to ask you about where you grew up and how you come from a rich tradition of successful quarterbacks in the Western PA area. How has that shaped your game today?
Well, I went to Joe Montana's former high school, and so like as a freshman and everything, you'd walk out on the field and you'd see, Joe Montana Stadium and this big picture of Joe Montana, and I don't know, I kind of found it kind of like a goal to like, even if like you'll never be, as good as Joe Montana or like a Tom Brady or anybody like that, like, be the best that you can be and see where you end up. And Joe Montana and a lot of the other guys from Western PA were able to, be those top level quarterbacks in the NFL. And, and if I think everyone just tried their hardest, who knows where you might end up. You might end up with them. You might end up, Hall of Fame or something like that. And you might end up just having a successful career. So,
yeah, that's really cool.
Just like George is having at Robert Morris University. So we're happy to have George Morris. So.
Very cool. And then I want to ask too, like coming off of last week and heading into practice this week, what has really been your biggest focus and what you've really wanted to work on before the Charleston Southern game?
You asking me or George?
Oh, I'm sorry, George.
Okay.
I think the biggest focus, not so much for me, but I think for the whole offense is we have to forget about, how poorly we played last week, and we have to focus on this game and focus on how we can get better. And we have to do a better job of understanding what we do on each play. I think there were times during the last game where people were in certain positions, including me, and we mentally couldn't understand exactly what our assignment was and how we were supposed to do it.
Coach, I guess I'll ask you the same question too.
Well, exactly what George said. What we got to do is build on what we did the second half. When we came out the second half, we're on top of things, doing what we're supposed to do. We got to make sure we're doing the little things. There were times where I had to call a timeout because we were misaligned. We didn't have enough people on the field. That's what I mean by being that month off and making those small mistakes that you can't make. So we got to make sure we don't make those same small, dumb mistakes we made last week, because Charleston Southern will capitalize on those things just like Kennesaw did last week. So we got to make sure we're being smart on the field, taking care of our business. And that's what the goal's been for practices. We make sure we're executing things. We did practice a little bit different as far as putting people in different places, making sure things are taken care of here, so we don't make those same mistakes as coaches as well as players, because I took the loss last week personally, because I didn't feel like we did what we needed to do as coaches to put those guys in the right position to win football games after being off for a month. I think we got a little lackadaisical as coaches. So we want to make sure we don't do that again this week as coaches. We want to make sure these guys are in the right position, doing the things that they need to do so we can be victorious and we can play a competitive football game.
And then I was going to ask too, how much stake do you take into what Charleston Southern is good or bad at, and then also focusing on what you need to execute?
One more time, I'm sorry.
So how much are you more focused on what you need to execute? How do you balance what Charleston Southern is good at? I'm trying to figure out how I'm trying to ask this question,
Well,
but
I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
Basically, what we need to worry about is how we're going to start the game. Obviously, you got to know what they're going to do to combat what you're doing. But at the same time, we got to make sure we're executing the plays we need to execute. We got to make sure that George knows the reads of the defense that he's going to get. We got to make sure that Nalio Bazakio understands exactly what he's going to get as far as formations from their offense. So we need to know those things. But at the same time, as coaches, we got to make sure our guys are aligned right. We got to make sure they're executing the plays right. Because when it comes to the mental aspect of a game, that's all coaches. When the young man's not lined up correctly, when he's not taking his proper steps with his foot, when he's not doing that, that's all coaches. Now, if a guy misses a tackle, that's a player. If it's physical, it's on him. If it's mental, it's on us. That's how we look at it as coaches. So we want to make sure our guys are mentally prepared for this game to know exactly where they're supposed to be and when they're supposed to be there. And that's the thing that's important to us. And we got to execute those things around what's going to be thrown at us from Charleston Southern University.
And my last thing is I'm sidelining your guys' game Saturday, and I've been doing my reading on you guys, and I just want to ask, are there any stories that haven't been told within your program that you would like to get out there that maybe I'm not able to read or find on Twitter or whatever?
Nope. No, I'm just joking, Anna. There's no crazy stories. We're a pretty laid back bunch. I mean, the great thing about us is, we're just trying to be the best culture we can as a football team. We're trying to keep our little family together and get things rolling. I think the guys are doing a great job of building the culture as a football team, because what Coach Joe Walton started here years ago, that's what we're trying to bring back. Because when you say culture, it's not about the coaches. It's about what the players are doing. And once a coach leaves or he's no longer here, those players are still building that same culture. That's what they did for years here before Joe Walton left. And we're just trying to bring those things back. So we're hoping we're doing that.